Take a $5 bill out of your pocket. Today, it barely buys you a specialty coffee at Starbucks. Maybe a quick snack at McDonald's if you're lucky. But did you know that a century ago, that same $5 bill was considered a significant amount of money? $5. It seems like so little nowadays, doesn't it? But the history of this simple amount reveals something fascinating about how inflation has completely transformed our concept of money. In this video, we're going to embark on a journey through time to discover exactly what $5 could buy in each decade, from the 1920s to today. Get ready to be absolutely shocked by the power this small amount had in the past. You'll discover that $5 wasn't just pocket change. In many decades, it was enough money to feed an entire family, go to the movies several times, or even make substantial purchases. Let's discover together how yesterday's change became practically nothing today. The 1920s, when $5 was serious money. In the Roaring '20s, having $5 in your pocket meant you were doing pretty well. The surprising power of $5. With $5 in 1920, you could do absolutely incredible things. Let's start with food, because that's where the difference becomes most impressive. $5 bought 15 pounds of quality beef, 50 fresh loaves of bread from the bakery, 40 quarts of fresh milk, 100 fresh farm eggs, 30 pounds of potatoes. But it wasn't just food. With $5, you could also go to the movies 33 times. That's right, a ticket cost only 15 cents. Buy 25 gallons of gasoline, enough to drive for hundreds of miles. Buy 3 new good quality shirts. Dine at a decent restaurant at least 10 times. Buy 5 new books. Salary context. To put it in perspective, an average worker earned about $1.20 per day. That means $5 represented 4 complete days of work. A teacher earned about $80 per month, so $5 was almost a week's salary. Imagine giving someone today the equivalent of a week's salary and saying, "This is just some change." The real experience. Imagine going to the supermarket in 1920 with a $5 bill. You would fill an entire cart with groceries, pay for everything, and still get change back. Then you could stop at the movies on the way home, watch a film, buy popcorn, and still have money in your pocket. Back then, $5 was the difference between going hungry and eating well for an entire week for a small family. The 1930s, the Great Depression makes $5 even more valuable. The 30s brought hard times, but ironically, $5 gained even more power due to deflation. What $5 bought during the Depression? During the Great Depression, prices plummeted, but finding $5 was extremely difficult. With $5 you could feed a family of 4 for 2 entire weeks. Buy 60 loaves of bread at 8 cents each. Buy 20 whole chickens. Pay a month's rent for a small apartment in rural areas. Buy clothes for the whole family. Affordable entertainment. 50 movie tickets, 10 cents each. 25 magazines or newspapers. 10 entries to baseball games. 5 new hardcover books. The economic reality. The problem wasn't the purchasing power of $5, it was having $5. Unemployment was at 25%, and many families didn't see that amount for weeks. A worker lucky enough to be employed earned about $15 per week. $5 represented 1/3 of the weekly salary. Real stories from the time. Families shared stories of how $5 saved the month. Mothers would buy flour, sugar, shortening, and yeast, and make enough bread to feed the family for weeks. With the change, they'd buy some vegetables and maybe a chicken for Sunday. There was a popular expression: "A dollar is worth gold, but $5 is worth a miracle." And it was true. The 1940s, war, rationing, and the value of $5. The 40s were dominated by World War II, but $5 still carried considerable weight. What $5 bought in wartime? Despite rationing, $5 went far if you had the necessary ration coupons. You could buy basic groceries for a week with coupons, 10 complete meals at a diner-type restaurant, 50 gallons of gasoline if you had the ration coupons, 20 movie tickets. Cinema was the great escape during the war. 5 vinyl records of the most popular hits, 2 new shirts or a pair of shoes, entertainment and culture, 20 entries to big band shows, 10 Pulp Fiction magazines, 5 new books, a complete night on the town, dinner, movies, and drinks with change, salaries and perspective. A factory worker earned about $40 per week during the war. $5 was more than a day's work, but less impressive than in previous decades. The war economy. Interestingly, many people had money thanks to jobs in war factories, but there were fewer things to buy due to rationing. $5 in the bank in 1940 had great value when the war ended. War bonds cost $5 and were seen as both a patriotic and financial investment. Buying a $5 bond was common and encouraged. The 1960s, social changes and the value of $5. The 60s brought cultural revolution and growing inflation, but $5 still mattered. What $5 bought in the decade of change? Food and necessities. Basic groceries for a few days. 5 meals at McDonald's. Big Mac cost 45 cents. 15 gallons of gasoline. 10 pounds of meat. 20 loaves of bread. Entertainment and culture. 5 movie tickets, $1 each. A new LP record by the Beatles or Rolling Stones. 5 magazines. 2 entries to a rock show at a small club. 20 beers at a bar, 25 cents each. The new youth culture. 2 psychedelic posters for the bedroom. 5 ice creams at the drive-in. A full day at the amusement park. Complete art supplies to make tie-dye. Emerging technology. 5 rolls of photographic film. Development of 25 photos. 2 blank cassette tapes. Salary perspective. The average weekly salary was around $100. $5 represented 5% of the weekly wage. Still significant, especially for teenagers and young adults. The college experience. A college student with $5 could buy a used book, or eat out 3 times during the week, or fill up the motorcycle tank, or buy beer for a small dorm party. The 1960s, social changes and the value of $5. The 60s brought cultural revolution and growing inflation, but $5 still mattered. What $5 bought in the decade of change? Food and necessities. Basic groceries for a few days. 5 meals at McDonald's. Big Mac cost 45 cents. 15 gallons of gasoline. 10 pounds of meat. 20 loaves of bread. Entertainment and culture. 5 movie tickets, $1 each. A new LP record by the Beatles or Rolling Stones. 5 magazines. 2 entries to a rock show at a small club. 20 beers at a bar, 25 cents each. The new youth culture. 2 psychedelic posters for the bedroom. 5 ice creams at the drive-in. A full day at the amusement park. Complete art supplies to make tie-dye. Emerging technology. 5 rolls of photographic film. Development of 25 photos. 2 blank cassette tapes. Salary perspective. The average weekly salary was around $100. $5 represented 5% of the weekly wage. Still significant, especially for teenagers and young adults. The college experience. A college student with $5 could buy a used book, or eat out 3 times during the week, or fill up the motorcycle tank, or buy beer for a small dorm party. The 1970s, inflation and $5 shrinks. The 70s marked the beginning of serious inflation, and $5 began to lose power rapidly. What $5 still bought, but less and less. Supermarket. Groceries for 1 or 2 days. 2 to 3 meals at McDonald's. 10 gallons of gasoline before the oil crises. 5 gallons during the oil crises. 5 pounds of meat. 10 loaves of bread. Entertainment. 2 movie tickets, $2.50 each at the end of the decade. A new LP record. 2 or 3 paperback books. A small pizza. The oil shock. The 1973 oil crisis changed everything. Suddenly, $5 that used to buy 15 gallons of gasoline now barely bought 10 gallons. In 1979, with the second crisis, $5 bought only 5 gallons. Galloping inflation. Prices rose visibly month by month. A purchase that cost $5 in January could cost $6 in December. People began to realize that keeping money at home was losing money. Salary context. The average weekly salary reached $200 by the end of the decade. $5 represented only 2.5% of the weekly wage. The inflation experience. Parents who gave $5 allowance to their children in the 60s had to increase it to $10 in the 70s for it to have the same purchasing power. And still, the children complained that it wasn't enough for anything. The 1980s, $5 becomes small money. In the 80s, $5 began to be truly seen as change for the first time. What $5 bought in the decade of excess? Food. 1 meal at McDonald's, hamburger, fries, soda. 3 to 5 gallons of gasoline. 2 or 3 loaves of bread. 1 pound of coffee. a promotional small pizza. Entertainment, 1 movie ticket matinee. Rental of 2 VHS movies. A cassette tape or magazine. 2 beers at a bar. A paperback book. The new reality. For the first time in history, $5 was no longer enough for much. It was what you gave as a tip at a decent restaurant, or what you spent in an arcade machine for an hour. 80s culture. 5 tokens at the arcade. An hour at the video store renting a movie. A sandwich at the new Subway on the corner. 2 music or gaming magazines. Salaries and perspective. The average weekly salary was around $350. $5 was less than 2% of the weekly wage, definitely small money. The 1990s, $5 as convenience. In the 90s, $5 became the basic value for convenience and impulse. What $5 bought in the digital era? Basic food. A combo at fast food, starting to cost more. 2 to 3 gallons of gasoline. A specialty coffee at the new Starbucks. A sandwich at Subway. A frozen meal. Entertainment. Rental of a movie at Blockbuster. Half a movie ticket. A specialized magazine. 3 songs on iTunes at the end of the decade. A used CD. The $5 economy. $5 became the standard value for small transactions. Companies began strategically pricing things at under $5 to seem cheap. New uses. Prepaid cell phone recharge. 1 hour of internet at a cyber cafe. 2 donuts and a coffee. ATM fee and a piece of gum. Perspective. Average weekly salary, $500. $5 represented 1% of the weekly wage. The 2000s, $5 continues shrinking. The 2000s consolidated $5 as almost nothing. What $5 bought in the new millennium? A large specialty coffee at Starbucks. A small combo at McDonald's, starting to not be enough. A gallon and a half of gasoline. A magazine. A download of 5 songs on iTunes. Half a movie ticket. An energy drink and a snack. A meal from the Dollar Menu plus drink. The digital reality. A week of premium access on a website. Some credits in online games. A song on iTunes plus a drink. A transaction fee plus minimum tip. The beginning of the end. For the first time, $5 wasn't enough for a basic complete meal in many places. It began to be seen as a contribution rather than payment. The 2010s, $5 as symbolic value. In the 2010s, $5 became almost symbolic. What $5 barely bought? Half a combo at McDonald's. A medium specialty coffee. A gallon of gasoline. Half a movie ticket. A premium app. 1 drink at a bar. 1 item from the Dollar Menu plus tax. A basic tip. New contexts. Month of streaming service on promotion. Some items in gaming apps. A symbolic online donation. A short promotional Uber ride. The app economy. $5 became the impulse price point for apps and digital services. The 2020s, $5 today. Today, $5 is practically irrelevant. What $5 buys now? A small coffee at Starbucks, depending on the drink. 2 items from the Dollar Menu. 3/4 of a gallon of gasoline. An app delivery fee. A minimum tip. A small snack. Half a sandwich at a deli. The brutal reality. You can no longer get a complete meal with $5 in most places. It's barely enough for a decent tip. It's what you lose between the couch cushions. Conclusion and reflection. $5 in 1920 equals approximately $80 today adjusted for inflation. That means that $5 bill has lost more than 93% of its real value in a century. Important lessons. Inflation is silent but brutal. While we sleep, our money loses value. What is little money changes completely over time. Our grandparents laugh when we say $5 is nothing. Value is relative to time. $5 will be even less in the future. Saving money without investing is guaranteed to lose money. Each generation has its own concept of cheap and expensive. Final reflection. Next time you look at a $5 bill, remember, that small note once bought meals for entire families, took people to the movies dozens of times, and was considered a serious amount of money. Today, it barely pays for a coffee. Tomorrow, who knows? How much do you think $5 will buy in 2050? Practically nothing? Or do you think something will change? If you enjoyed this video, leave your like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what was the most shocking story about old prices that your grandparents ever told you? Thanks for watching, and remember, invest your money, because leaving it sitting still is watching it disappear. See you next time.